Welcome to another edition of the Bottom Line Lexington podcast. Not much going on locally. I heard a lot of buzz today about UK guys going pro. Not the Tyler Ulises and Jamal Murrays, but more the Isaiah Briscoes and the Marcus Lees. Especially Marcus Lee talking with ESPN about the only goal I have is to go in the first round of the NBA draft. And people are in shock around here. Yes, that is the goal of any guy who comes to play at Kentucky. Go in the first round of the draft. That should be your first and foremost personal goal. I don't see what people have an issue with that. But as far as Isaiah Briscoe and Marcus Lee go, they would be fools to go pro right now. I read somewhere where Isaiah Briscoe is the number 84 ranked prospect, and Marcus Lee isn't even ranked in the top 100. Why should these guys go pro? I don't know. People would say, oh, Briscoe and Poitras come back next year. They'll provide experience to the team. I heard one local talk show loser say that last night. By the way, Alex Poitras was a senior last year. How did his quote-unquote leadership do for UK last season? Didn't do a whole lot, did it? Yeah. These guys should come back to school if they're not going in the first round, because you want to be like the Harrison twins? You want to be like Takari Johnson? Ride around those D-League buses all season long where nobody watches you play and you're making just a little money? Congratulations on that. But nobody sees you play. Look at guys like James Young, Daniel Orton. They will never play in another NBA game. But you know what? They were first-round draft picks. They got their guaranteed money. James Young was a 17th pick overall by the Celtics. He played a few games in his rookie year for them, but he's been in the D-League ever since, and he'll never play in the NBA again. But he got his money, and that's all that matters. Daniel Orton averaged 3 points and 3 rebounds a game at UK. Still got drafted in the first round, still got his money. He'll never play in the NBA again. He doesn't care because he made it rich off that rookie contract. That's all that matters. The bottom line with this, if you're going in the first round, you should go pro, no matter who you are. If you're not going to the first round, you should find another option, or get used to riding those D-League buses. Hey, the Reds won last night 4-3 over the Rockies. Robert Stevenson, 7 strong innings, but then we get to the bullpen, and as we all know, coffee is for closers only. There's no coffee being served by that bullpen. That bullpen will never be sponsored by Starbucks, I can promise you that much right now. Caleb Cotham, my choice for the new closer. Obviously, J.J. Hoover, the Moobs man himself, needs a role change. But Caleb Cotham, for my money, he should be your closer. He's got 3 holds on the year, 0 ERA in 8 games. He's your guy. Sonny Cingrani, maybe not so much. He's your only lefty down there. May not have to use him as a closer. J.J. Moobs Hoover, the Man Boobs Man. Yeah, he came into the game in the 9th inning. He only needed 2 outs. You had a 3-run lead and 2 outs. And you gave up a 2-run homer to Mark Reynolds, who literally does nothing other than strike out or hit a home run. It's either or. He does nothing else. Where's Kevin Gregg when you need him? Why don't you trot him out there too? The good news for the Reds bullpen, Jumbo Diaz has been sent to the minor leagues, erasing a huge hole in the 8th inning. Shockingly enough, the Reds didn't give up any runs in the 8th inning, because going into the game, as we talked about yesterday on this show, in the 8th inning, nobody gives up more runs than the Reds. It's incredible. They give up an average of 1.62 runs every time the 8th inning is played. That's crazy. That can't do anything but go down. So that at least they can only get better. But ABC, always be closing. For my money, Caleb Cotham, quite possibly your new closer going forward. Let's hope so, because the Moob Man Hoover, he's in big trouble. That ERA, 15.19. That's not exactly closer material. If you're in a fantasy league, go get Caleb Cotham right now. Bottom line, the Reds are 7-7 right now. They're still losing 90-plus games. Sorry about your luck, Reds fans. The great Dwayne Pearl Washington passed away this morning. One of my all-time favorite players. For me, a kid growing up on the farm in the middle of nowhere, always wanting to go to a city, always wanting to be on the radio talking about sports, and realizing that Syracuse was the best communications and radio broadcast school in the country, and then falling in love with the Syracuse basketball team because of Pearl Washington and his street brand of basketball. And people say, oh, when you say street, that's racial overtones. No, it's not. He literally played ball on the streets in Brooklyn, New York. Doesn't matter if he's black or white. That's just where he played. Unlike my friends and I, who played in elementary school gyms in Madison County. Nobody cares about that. It's a completely different type of game. But the Pearl was great. He was a great player. He was a state of mind. And he was more than just a basketball player. He was just someone you could really look at and tell he was a different cat. And I will always love that guy and love how he played. It's a shame what happened to him afterwards. He went pro. He just wasn't good enough to be in the pros. And then he got brain cancer later in life, and that's what he died of today. He was actually selling T-shirts, Pearl T-shirts, to cover his medical bills. It's sad. What's a lot of these athletes get in their 40s and 50s, and they're 20, 30 years out from school. These schools don't help these kids, and it's sad. And for every one athlete that makes it big in football and basketball, there are thousands of others who struggle financially, who struggle just getting and holding a job afterwards because these colleges have chewed up and spit these kids out, and it's just sad. But anyway, rest in peace to what probably my favorite basketball player, maybe of all time, especially from the 80s though. Those old Big East games on ESPN when it's Syracuse and Georgetown and St. John's and Villanova, all those games were awesome. That was the heyday of college basketball for me. Those Big East games on ESPN in the 80s when Georgetown and Syracuse and all those teams ruled the roost. It was great. Rest in peace, Pearl. Other news today. Jake the Snake Roberts. No, we're not doing a wrestling segment. But 30 years ago, we know Jake the Snake Roberts was one of the greatest wrestlers ever. With the snake and the DDT, one of the most powerful moves in wrestling. He offered his services to Johnny Manziel to get him on the straight and narrow. Wow, that's the pot calling the kettle black right there. I saw Jake, this is hand-to-God truth. I saw Jake the Snake Roberts. We were at a sports bar in Atlanta in 1993 for the ACC championship game between Georgia Tech and North Carolina. I do not forget this. We were sitting there watching the game, Georgia Tech, North Carolina. Of course, the whole place is for Georgia Tech. He's sitting there with his boys, and he looked scary. And this was, 23 years ago. He looked 100 years old then. I can only imagine what he looks like now. But this guy was rough. You can tell. You can smell him 50 feet away. That was a rough-looking crowd. If he wasn't on something at that point other than steroids, which if you look at him, he really wasn't a steroids guy. But seriously, Jake the Snake offering help to Johnny Manziel? Dude, Johnny Manziel needs to go somewhere else to get help. Not Jake the Snake, or else he'll be even worse off than he was before. Johnny Manziel, good luck, brother. Entertainment news. Michael Strahan left the old Regis and Kathy Lee show, but now I guess it's Michael and Kelly Ripa. I don't know. But he left that show. He left Kelly Ripa behind to go completely to Good Morning America. Do I fault him? Do I knock a man's hustle? No. A great man once told me, never knock a man's hustle. But who I do fault is Kelly Ripa, who did not show up for her job today out of protest that she was not informed that Michael Strahan was leaving the show. By the way, Kelly Ripa makes $20 million a year. And I was reading somewhere, $20 million, that's $36,000 a show. $36,000 for 1 hour, 5 days a week. Now, that's a gig if you could get it. Oh, but she's got to stick to her moral aptitude or whatever. Good for you, Kelly Ripa. No wonder you're always voted one of Hollywood's top 10 worst people to work with. Michael Strahan, don't knock a man's hustle. Get your money, brother. Can you believe this guy? Did anybody predict Michael Strahan's success before he retired? This huge success he would be after he retired from football? I sure didn't. I didn't see this coming. Unbelievable. Michael Strahan is truly an American success story. But if you ask me, go Google his divorce. There's some shady stuff around that divorce that a lot of people don't know about. He's very lucky that people don't know about his divorce from his first wife. By the way, today is the 30th anniversary of Michael Jordan's, quite possibly his best personal game, the 63-point playoff game against Boston. Boston that year was considered one of the best teams of all time. Bob Ryan of the Boston Globe wrote a hugely successful book about this team, proclaiming it the best team of all time. But still, Michael Jordan, in 2 overtimes now, don't be fooled, 2 overtimes, he got 60 on the Celtics. Nobody can stop him. McHale, Bird, none of them can stop him. I remember watching it live with my mom, and my mom, of course, was rooting for Larry Bird because Larry Bird was an ugly dude with a bad mustache. And I'm sitting there rooting for Jordan because I couldn't stand the Celtics back then. But still, 30 years ago since that game. Probably Jordan's greatest individual game. Some people say the flu game. Some people say the game against Portland where he hit 6 3-pointers in one half. For my money, this was his best game and his coming out party 30 years ago today. NBA last night, Atlanta and the Spurs win. They're going to go on and win those series. Tonight, you've got 2 games, both of which I kind of like out in the desert. Charlotte getting 5 against the Miami Heat, and Detroit getting 10 against Cleveland. Your Mac Daddy Stogie picks of the night. We were 2-1 this week. Give me both dogs. Give me Charlotte getting 5. Give me Detroit getting 10. The old zigzag theory, which the first night, Monday night, worked very well, 3-0. But last night, if you played it straight up, you didn't do so well. But we have the modified version of it. Charlotte and Detroit tonight. Those are your Mac Daddy plays of the night using our old friend, the zigzag theory. And that does it for another edition of the Bottom Line Lexington podcast. Make sure to tune in tomorrow for some more fun and excitement. Follow us on Twitter at BottomLineLex. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, Bottom Line Lexington. And make sure to email us, bottomlinelex@gmail.com. And we do have a website, bottomlinelexington.com. Tune in to tomorrow's podcast, and until then, may the winners be yours.